Hello, my name is Joel Sebestyen, and I'm doing a podcast on becoming and understanding a respite worker. And I have a guest here by the name of Liz Noble, and I'm going to be chatting with her for a few minutes or so, and we're going and asking her questions as well. And I'm going to also understand some stuff myself too.
Great. Thank you for having me, Joel.
Thank you, Liz, for being here. The reason why I'm doing this podcast is because I'm compassionate towards people, and I lived in a group home when I was younger, between the ages of 15 and 18, and I sort of want to help people with certain things with their life and so on, and challenges and disabilities and etc. To a certain degree, I know what it's like to be in this situation. It differs from I know it differs from everybody, but like I had no money, no employment, nothing, so. So I know what. So like I said, I know what it feels like. But I recently tried to apply as a respite worker at a homeless shelter, and with work experience, because I don't have the college experience that I guess I should have, but I don't. But a lot of places are accepting life experience now. But anyway, I was turned down because of the experience. Lack of experience, I should say, sorry. And I'm volunteering now every week, once a week now. And so I'm hoping that will help me towards gaining experience and working with the guest and the general population, because I know that there's different types of respite workers. I know Liz. She worked on a one-to-one basis in the community, and I'm going to ask you some questions, and we're going to see if we can get a conversation going. I have a question for you. When did you decide to become a respite worker?
Respite sort of fell into my lap, I guess, in a way that was a bit of a surprise for me. So I started working with individuals with diverse abilities in an arts, theater and arts sense. So I had got involved with a company that worked with individuals with diverse abilities to put on a dramatic showcase. So it's like a big play that we did. And I was in film and drama and theater. So yeah, it essentially was a pretty easy transition for me to get into that. But I became passionate about working with people with diverse abilities once I was working with the different actors there and performers. And I got very close to the families that I worked with. And I actually left Drama Way for a little bit and ended up pursuing a couple of different things in my industry in film, and was not really fulfilled. I didn't feel like I was doing anything for anybody else besides, like a big corporation. So I kind of felt not fulfilled in my day-to-day life. And there was a turning point that came within that career that I thought I needed to make a change. And there was an opportunity for me to work with a couple of individuals who were looking for support work. And I thought this would be a really great way to give back, but also to hone some more of my skills in working with persons with diverse abilities and being a personal, I was called different things. I was called a respite worker. I was called a personal support worker. I was called a buddy. I was called many different things. But essentially what I guess was the professional title would have been respite worker. And so I just found myself at a bit of a career change, and I found a few families who were really interested in having me work with their children, and I worked really well with the individuals, and that's kind of how it happened. It was sort of, I wasn't necessarily looking for it, but it sort of found me.
Okay. Was there any emotional parts in that?
Yeah, in what way? Like emotional once I got working with them?
Yeah,
Yes,
working with them.
Oh, very emotional, yeah. It is emotional because you essentially are part of the family in a sense, because the idea of respite is that you're coming in to give a space and time for the family to do something else besides being together. Like, mom and dad might go do something together, or siblings might be able to, have some friends over or something. But like the idea is that I'm helping get this person into the community, or goal setting and helping them achieve certain things in their day-to-day life. Even just as simple as, going for a grocery shop to prepare this person for independent living, or take them to an appointment. So you get really involved with the family, right? And there's lots of emotional things like that, I think.
Okay. When you're out in public with the people you're helping, do they get agitated through stress or anxiety or something?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And I know, putting things like embarrassing aside, is it very difficult to get them calmed down?
Yeah, each individual had their own issues, or their own diverse ability. They definitely all got stressed at different things, and sometimes things that I couldn't even anticipate. Like I would think about when we would travel on the TTC, for example, so that I could mitigate the chance that we'd be in large crowds, or that there'd be loud noises for certain clients of mine, right? Other clients, that kind of thing didn't faze them. But it was difficult to anticipate all of those things, because each day I'm working with somebody completely different, and they could definitely have their own anxiety. So I talk about this in most areas of my life, but improvising on the fly of okay, I know what would help, this client settle down, and like just looking for the opportunity to have that happen, and doing what I can to help them calm down or not feel so anxious. Okay. But yeah, it definitely would occur.
Is there any issues with you when you wake up in the morning, you don't really want to go to work and help them? If you have an idea there's going to be a situation?
Yeah, I think what you're also pointing to is it is a very exhausting position. It's something that is very tiresome. Like you might only spend 5 or 6 hours with the person, or 4 hours, but I found at least that I would be pretty beat by the end of the day, because you have to be on. So, the only time, Joel, I would really feel that is if I felt ill myself, like say I was under the weather or sick.
Yep.
I definitely wouldn't feel like I had 100% to give to the person, and that can be problematic, because you need to be really, really present and on for each individual person. So not that I didn't resent it or go like, oh, I don't want to go and see that person today, but I wanted to make sure I was there for them.
Yeah. Well, I understand that can be very demanding, but the issues of facing someone who wants to work as a respite worker, could there be barriers, do you think?
I think that there are barriers, because like you were mentioning, like the educational part, I think you've also said in looking for respite work that you've noticed they are taking more personal experience as qualified, like you qualify with personal experience. Because for me, I didn't really have, like I had a university degree in film. I mean, that didn't really qualify me technically for it.
But it helps.
It helps. But I think what did help me, and that was a barrier I didn't have, is that I already worked within the community. Like I already had a lot of connections. Like I ended up working from a personal level. My first client was one of my best friend's brothers, who I grew up with. And he was just happy to have a friend, like his sister's friend, around to hang out with. But he listened to me, and he wasn't really open to strangers, for lack of a better word.
Okay.
So he was just a first connection. So I didn't really have a barrier to finding clients, because I was already in the community. So that's one of the barriers I don't think I had to deal with. But I think that is a barrier for some people coming kind of, walking off the street essentially just to say, looking for this role.
Okay. Because there's some places like who do different types of respite work. When it comes to the diversity and inclusion portion, do they? I feel things myself have gotten a little bit better over the years, but we still need to focus and work on them. But how do you feel? Because you've seen a lot of things.
Yeah, I actually really do feel like I see that. Actually, right now, we're recording from the Disability Channel's studio. You yourself are a participant in the Digital Ventures program. And the Disability Channel also offers a really fantastic program called Access Now. So this is some change. This is an example of change that I've seen where programs like Access Now aim at taking the studio. So Disability Channel does, these great web shows, but they're aiming at taking the studio, the behind the scenes, being a reporter, being a camera man or woman, doing the social media editing, all of those really cool, fun things. They're working on through this program, Access Now, taking that and bringing it into classrooms at schools, so through the TDSB or through any other school system, and working with the classes which have individuals with diverse abilities, and the mainstream students to bring them in together so that we're including everybody, they're mentoring each other, they're understanding more about each other. So there was never programs like that when I was in school. Never.
Oh, either me, either
right.
I.
So just in that small fact, I can see there definitely is positive change.
Okay. Getting back to the education portion, do you find that any of these learning institutions, they offer sort of support for the individual if they do continue with their education?
Individual in terms of a person with a diverse ability? There's lots of continuing education options. I know that there's some programs through colleges, but there's also educational programs through the social enterprises and social service agencies for perfect example of Digital Ventures. That's an ongoing program that's meant for persons with diverse abilities to extend their knowledge of digital media and computers and basically help them get more prepared for the workplace. So I think that education definitely exists out there. It just might not be in the typical ways that we might see it, where there's a school, like a bricks and mortar place that you might go to that is dedicated solely to that. But here, we're in a bricks and mortar location, but we have an office space and we're dedicating our work to helping people with their education. So I think that that's out there. It just takes a little bit of searching.
Okay. And have you ever been personally impacted by someone who has who's caused a scene or stressed you out personally or like that?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think we all have. It's probably a part of definitely living in a bigger city. I think if we're in Toronto, I think we've all stumbled upon something that causes some stress and anxiety. So I'd say yes, for sure.
Okay. I know that I know from hearing from my past experience, some people have said that they can only work in social work for 2 years or so, and then it gets to them, and then they have to move on.
I've heard that too.
It sounds like, I don't know if you're like that, but
I think that I don't think I'm like that, but I'm not a social worker. I think social workers are examples of people who are very underpaid for the work that they do, but they have a lot of hard things to deal with. So I think when you have individuals seeing difficult situations over and over, it does definitely weigh on you, I think, emotionally. Like you talked about before, the emotional connection. If you have a stack of people, that you're dealing with, to see some of these stories come through the door, and I do have some friends that are social workers and have known social workers, it definitely weighs on people's conscience and their emotions. So there's certain people who can take that for long periods of time and some people who can't. So maybe it's not really the greatest place for them to be. But it can weigh on them, I think.
Okay.
Everything has an impact, right?
Oh, of course, it has to. That's part of life.
And it's difficult subject matter that they're dealing with. So sometimes it doesn't do as big of an impact on certain people, and other people maybe need to take a break.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. Okay. Do you think that both parties, a respite worker as well as the client or the guest, do you think they could learn something from one another?
Absolutely. What a great question. Yeah, I think they absolutely could learn something from one another. That's a great perspective, Joel, because I think that's a good perspective in a lot of parts of life. But if you're the client, you can maybe think about, how is this, instead of fighting maybe or pushing back on this person who's come into your life to try to help you, maybe pause for a moment and think, okay, what is this person trying to do? Bottom line, they're probably trying to help you. So let's listen and talk about it. Maybe not have too much of an emotional difficulty about
Okay.
something that this person's doing to try to help you. Like, I've had trouble before trying to assist my clients into getting into day programs. There's lots of great day programs out there. There's lots of resistance about persons like giving in to go to a day program. I think that people feel like, oh, it's like daycare. I used to have a client who knows, oh, I don't want to go to daycare. And it's not really about that. There's a social element to these day programs that you're not going to get sitting at home playing video games. You're just not. And you're not going to get it from watching YouTube videos. And your day flies by, And if you're out there in a community, interacting with people, making friends, even if you have an argument that day, at least you're practicing some skills and thinking about things, and your brain's working in different ways than doing the same stuff you do at home, maybe hanging out with mom and dad or hanging out with your brother who's at home. Those kinds of things, they don't help you develop, right? They don't help you go further. But then also, to your point, I could definitely take a moment and think, maybe I don't always know the right answer, and I need to listen more carefully to my client. I think you're right. Yeah.
Speaking on the life skills portion, do you find that do you have to help the client or the guest when it comes to everyday living, like cooking, cleaning, things like that? Do you have to let them know, or do you have to teach them, or do you have to point them in the direction where, like, into a group or something like that, at a community center or a drop-in group where they will basically train them?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. That is a major part of my role. So as a respite worker, like, I wasn't really trained by anybody. I just sort of looked at what families needed, and I thought, I am a key to some resources through my other past experiences, through my other roles, and even through being a personal assistant and understanding how to research and look for resources and call people and get info. All of those things really helped me to serve my clients, so that if I saw, okay, mom and dad are getting really, 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 like, worn out because they need a break in a bigger way. They don't just need me once a week. They might need this individual to also take some initiative to go for a volunteer position, or maybe they need to go to a day program. Okay, you know what? Mom and dad are exhausted. They're probably not going to be the ones who can manage that research. That's up to me. So support worker, respite person, I put on my hat and go out there and try to search for some positions. And I was often successful in presenting that idea to the family and the individual and saying, this is what we got here. This is how it's going to help you. And this is how we can get you there. And this is how we can get you back.
Yep.
And so that's 100% of those things, even life skills of cooking, cleaning, hygiene for the person, helping them understand about personal hygiene, and lots of things, even just conflict management, Joel. Like, lots of people who I worked with just not understanding or not having sort of the experience to go by to work through a conflict that they've had with a family member, just to talk it out. Because so many times it's an insular sort of thing where they're in the house and their mom, dad, sister, and the four walls are the only thing that they have. So not the only thing that they have, but that's who they see every day.
So so basically you're like a savior, in a way. You're a saint. In a way, no, you are, because
I don't know. I always feel
because
awkward
if
about
you're
it.
taking time, I mean, no, you're doing your job, and you're helping out with the client or the guest, and you're taking sort of that time out of the off the parents' shoulder, so that they can have a relax. They can go out and have a coffee, or they can socialize themselves.
That's the
because
goal.
if they don't socialize, or if they get sick,
That's right.
there's a problem. There's
That's
a problem.
right. Yeah, that's the goal. The goal is to give them extra space to breathe, extra space to be a mom and dad. not to be the person in between trying to break up the fight or trying to get this person. Because you know what it's like. We know what it's like with families. If mom and dad tell us something, we're teenagers, we're in the house, or we're adults even, and we're in the house and mom and dad suggest something, it doesn't always, most of the time, we're not going to take their advice. Unfortunately, that's how family dynamics sometimes work. You need a third party to come in, like an arbitrator, somebody who's got, that down and understands the family dynamic and who can say, okay, hold on a sec, let's talk about this option. And I've luckily been successful in helping in those situations. And I think improving the family situation and dynamic while I've worked there.
Okay. Speaking of that, with the family dynamics,
Yeah.
Is there a barrier with like languages? Like
I've actually never had too much of a barrier. Well, you know what? No, I'll say this. I worked with a client who was nonverbal.
Oh, okay.
So not necessarily like English to a different language. It's not that,
Okay.
but a nonverbal situation is a lot more difficult. So there was a language barrier in its own right, but it wasn't something about that I didn't speak the same language as the family. I've always worked with predominantly English-speaking families. There was families who I worked with that spoke different languages, but it wasn't the number one language in the house. But nonverbal clients, that definitely was a new sort of thing for me to experience.
Okay.
And there was the challenges along with that, but we found our groove, I guess you could say.
Do you know anybody? I know people who have disabilities. I know they can be interesting individuals themselves, right? But have you met anyone that like a celebrity or that's really interesting that you find?
That has a disability?
Yeah.
A celebrity who I've met.
Not necessarily a celebrity, but anyone.
Well, there's some people, no, there's a ton of people at the drama company that I met. And even here at the Disability Channel, some of the newscasters or the people who are the hosts of the shows, they are star power types, through and through, have really big personalities. If you get into a performing art like theater or film, you're going to find those people who just shine on stage, right? So one of my favorites I have is Nick Hurd. He works for the Disability Channel, and he's got his own show, and he has great star power. He always has. I worked with him at Dramaway as well, and he was always on stage and stole the show. He was a great performer. But lots of people who I've met, Joel, have been excellent performers, excellent individuals, and have a really special thing about them, I think.
Okay, well, I would like to thank you for taking time and speaking with me.
Thank you for having me, Joel.
You're welcome. And I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the Disability Channel for giving me and others an opportunity to help with employment training, internships that can teach us work with work experience, with the digital ventures like in digital media, also upgrading with people who have with diverse abilities, And so to learn more, visit www.thedisabilitychannel.ca and subscribe to our channel on YouTube, follow on Facebook and Twitter. The Disability Channel, showcasing abilities.